I've learned a lot recently about how early and ways to invest in your brand, right? And you know my bias on DemandGen. I realized at EchoSign a lot in the beginning. We actually did invest a lot in the brand without thinking about it. And then I had sort of my epiphany when I spoke at Gainsight's user conference last year. And you know, Gainsight's a small company. I don't know, maybe $1 million or $2 million revenue, and there's like 800 people in the customer and I'm sitting at lunch with one of their customers, and she's like, "This is so great." I'm like, "Yeah, this is really great." She's like, "This is the 5th year, right?" And it was like this moment that they created this community around this brand that was much bigger than the customers.
Sure. And
it was clear to me that the ROI from this, even at $1 million in ARR, wherever they were, I don't know. Whoever Gainsight here, I've not disclosed, I don't know any revenues, but it was small a year ago. That was an epically great, and they have a lot of venture capital, right? But how early should we be thinking, because we talk about a lot about DemandGen and product, how early should I think about investing in the brand and money? Literally money into the brand.
So I think that brand building today is just totally different than it was even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, if you rank #1 for an important keyword, right, that people are using, I think that's great branding, right? People see that and like, wow, they rank #1. That must be a good company. For something. When you have great content and people share it and people are seeing your content on Twitter and on Facebook, that's great branding, right? And so I do think that company, it's back to my whole build your inbound is your first muscle, even before you have your demand gen. You're building brand. You're just building it through content. So your question is a little bit more like, when do I start doing, I would say, traditional brand?
When do I put money into it?
Well,
my money's limited. Even if I'm spending half, I'm going from 1 to 3, right? So
I would even early do things like using promoted posts on Facebook to amplify if I'm promoting my content, I would amplify it, right, to audiences that I want to amplify this to, on Facebook, which I'm spending money, but arguably that's still kind of in the inbound world.
But I'm a founder, right? And I'm spending this money. And the ROI is tough to measure from Facebook branding, right? How do I get my arms around the fact that feels like cash going down the drain? Even though I know it's great, I mean, I want it, right? I want my brand everywhere. But this program, this paid webinar, this 25 grand I got 2 customers out of, that sounds better to me than spending 10 grand a month on Facebook ads. How do I get my head around that?
You'll see it. I mean, the good thing about the billboard on 101, you're not going to, and I'm not advocating doing the billboard on 101. But some of these other things you're doing, I think, modern content-oriented branding, you will see, because your web traffic will get amplified. And your engagement metrics, will get amplified. And there's at least enough signs that you can do that. I think you can feel somewhat confident that you are moving the needle in your business. So there's that. Now, you talked about the Gainsight conference, and I think that's an interesting thing, to talk about, because one of the themes that I like to advise people to do is to, wherever possible, do owned attention and not rented attention. And what I mean by that is work on my blogs so that people come to there, as opposed to PR paid PR to try to get my stuff onto somebody else's. Or advertising on somebody else's thing, because when you can do it yourself, it's better, it's more powerful, to have long legs and that kind of thing. At Marketo, one of the things that we did pretty early on was we took money out of trade shows, right, where we're renting somebody attention in somebody else's trade show floor. Took that same money to honing our own captive event. And for the same price of a shitty booth on a trade show, 20 grand or something, you can have 200 people come and listen to you for 2 hours, and your customers, and they get that experience of like, wow, this is pretty good. So I think you can do that pretty darn early, actually. As soon as you feel like you've got enough market presence and market pull to get 30 or 40 people, of the right people, not your friends and family and people who are there for a free drink. But 30 for the right people, when you feel like your database is big enough and your brand presence is big enough, I think that's a very effective thing to do.
That's my city tour learning. Like, as soon as you can get anyone to come to your city tour, you're going to get a customer, right? You spend 20 grand on the dinner. If your deal size is more than 20 grand, it's going to be ROI positive.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that is, anything where you're building and owning your own attention is money well
That's a
spent.
good insight.